I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. This week, will you be reluctant to travel when the pandemic is over?
I think I and a lot of other Canadians are going to be very excited to travel again.
I don't think I will be traveling internationally.
I'm in no hurry to travel.
I guess it's down to the vaccine, isn't it?
But first, with alarming numbers fueling this third wave of COVID-19, we've been seeing the amount of positive cases in some provinces equaling or even exceeding those from January. But those dangerous and highly contagious variants everyone is talking about is keeping Canadians on their guard. So, after 2 waves of the pandemic, have you been sticking to the same routine, or have you been taking more precautions? Our question.
Has a third wave made you more careful than before?
I've always been careful. I can't afford to get sick, lose money, and then get other people I know sick in my household. So I think I take it very seriously because I've done enough research to know that it can be deadly, and I certainly don't want to die just yet or get anybody else killed.
I'm retired. My life hasn't changed a whole lot, other than I can't go to the gym and I can't have dinner with my friends. So when you're retired, it's not, I mean, I go to get groceries and I go home and I wash my hands. It's no different than any other flu season. You take care of yourself, take your vitamins, be outside, get lots of fresh air, and stay healthy.
Well, I've already had my first dose. So, I was being pretty careful before, so I think I'm trying to maintain my same approaches.
No, it actually hasn't. I'm trying to be careful as much as possible. I realize I'm not wearing a mask right now, right at this moment, but that's only for this interview. Other than that, washing hands super often, obviously maintaining minimum 6 feet distance, trying to make sure that I minimize contact unless necessary with people, excluding possibly family and close cohorts. Yeah, washing hands and not touching faces, probably 2 of the most important things to do all the time.
It sure has, because of the variants, because we just don't know much about them. So yes, it has.
For me personally, yeah, because there's a lot of people that are in my age group or cohort that are in ICUs and such. So it does concern me a lot more than the previous wave. That being said, on the other hand, it's, there's a lot more vaccinations and such in the broader public. So those that are at risk, like the older folk, are less, at risk. So that's, I guess, a benefit. But I am personally more concerned.
I've been doing pretty much what I've been doing, since the pandemic started, mask wearing, hand washing, all that stuff. I think that, we're definitely not seeing the third wave on PEI as extreme as other provinces, so it's easier to not feel the need to amp up, the measures as much.
Not any different, still, wearing my mask wherever I go and whatnot, and keeping my distance, and just trying to do the best I can, and go from there.
Here in PEI, where it seems like we've kind of maintained a low number of cases, I guess not really, but if we did see an uptick in cases here in PEI, then I would probably be a little bit more careful, but I'm just pretty content abiding by the current rules.
I feel like I've just almost adapted to it. It's almost just a sense of normal. Just wearing the mask, washing your hands, all of the things we've been doing for the last year.
I think I've always been quite careful in the way that I've been going out and about in my daily life. I think we've been able, because we have more information about COVID, I think we have more opportunities and options to protect ourselves. And so I don't necessarily feel that I've changed much because of being in a third wave. I think I'm staying pretty much the status quo as I had been before in all the other different iterations.
Yeah, I've been keeping my circle a lot smaller and just sticking around my family and just my one friend, basically, because I work in healthcare and I have a younger sister and I just don't want to bring that into my home, so I've just been kind of keeping things smaller.
I guess geographically depends where you are, right? I don't think I haven't felt like I've needed to be more careful on PEI. If there was a circuit breaker again, of course, but no, I haven't been any more careful right now, but I'll be going back to Montreal in a few weeks and I'll definitely be more careful there. There's a curfew in place.
I'm more careful. I'm just very thankful that we live on PEI. We've had low case numbers, we've had low daily cases, so I'm pretty I'm pretty safe on Prince Edward Island. If I was in a bigger province like Ontario, I see that they have a lot of cases. Alberta, provinces like that, I would be more careful, more cautious. But I do feel safe of what the province is doing and what Heather Morrison is doing and the government.
I've been being careful all along, so I wouldn't say I've been more careful. But I think my sense is that most people are getting pandemic fatigue and kind of enough is enough, whatever happens. But I'm trying to be patient because it's not going to be much longer. They're saying that all of us will be vaccinated, fully vaccinated, hopefully by the fall. So we just need to hang in a little longer.
I'm certainly more conscientious, of course, about the spread, especially in other places, and I think it would be foolish not to consider what's happening in other places, particularly, at the top of my mind right now is in Ontario, where the case rise is so high, and where, in comparison to here, where we've been so fortunate, I know that there's extra things that I need to be aware of in service industry as well as in theater, where we're doing things that they can't do anywhere else right now. Like, they can't do it, and we're here doing it only because of the conditions here and how, I believe that people contributing in the way of masking and social distancing and being conscientious is helping us to be able to do those things.
The variants are pretty scary. So definitely on the alert. I certainly haven't eased back in terms of the protocol and the restrictions, for sure.
I don't think so. I took it pretty serious right from the start, my husband and I both. And I think that the majority of people are taking it seriously, and the ones that aren't should be.
During federal elections in the past, voter turnout in Canada has been pretty low. The lowest, in fact, was in 2008, when 58.8% of Canadians showed up at the polls. The pandemic, of course, takes a lot of our focus. But when it comes to the work of our federally elected officials, what would it take to make you pay more attention? Our question.
What would increase your interest in Canadian politics?
Honestly, if there was less political rhetoric and there was more talk about the issues, I'd be a lot more willing to engage more often.
I think more interest in the West, more fairness across Canada overall, and definitely more diversity in regards to oil versus manufacturing, industries.
I'm pretty engaged in Canadian politics, but I would think if I could ask one thing, it would be that we worry less about American politics. We seem to know a whole lot more about what's going on south of the border. And the problem today is it's got to be the Canadian government, the Alberta government, and the local governments that deal with the problems we're facing.
I don't know. I follow politics pretty closely right now. I don't think not much would increase it, yeah.
I think a greater discussion on how we are helping millennials, keep up with this tumultuous time. It's tumultuous economically, from a climate change standpoint, from changes in government, and now with the pandemic, a lot of us are starting families. We still have student loans. We don't know if we're going to have enough in our pensions at the end of the day. So I feel that millennials are at a bit of an institutional junction, and I think maybe we need a more focused message on that because we're not kids anymore. We're part of the industry. We have families, and I don't think that we're being talked about as a demographic.
If the other parties were perhaps showed more interest in actually governing, it would make for a lot more interesting races, more interesting elections. But right now what we see is a lot of posturing or pandering to one's respective bases, and it really quite easily turns me off to it and turns my attention away from it. So more serious focus on the issues that matter to Canadians, practical solutions that would help a lot of people.
I'm pretty interested. Maybe, I don't know, maybe if it was just a little bit more on like a personal level and less of it just seems like kind of like
a boys club of like these like middle-aged men, and that's like where they do their deal. And not just men, but and like I think they need to kind of involve the community more and like involve youth and stuff like that, and kind of get more people interested like that. Maybe through like social media, stuff like that.
I don't think anything could make me more interested in Canadian politics. I'm pretty heavily invested and pretty heavily engaged, and I think it's critical right now that we look for leaders who are principled in their decision making, who value people above all else. And yeah, I don't think there's anything that'll change that for me. I think I've always been a pretty engaged voter.
I think it starts more so from high school is where it needs to start for increase. Now that I have gotten a little bit more older, it's definitely something that you realize it's in your everyday and it affects it that way. So you are automatically interested in politics. I think now it needs to start for people who are eligible to vote. So those who are going to be 18, so starting in grade 10 or 11, getting them to understand the ins and outs, and not just the old school what's expected in politicians, not the social studies aspect, but more so what's going on in your everyday, something that's a little bit more relevant in their studies. So yeah, I think it just needs to increase for high schoolers. They're going to be up and coming for voting when they're 18, especially in a pandemic, being homeschooled in and out of school. Their reality is a little bit more warped versus someone who's a little bit older like myself, who can understand the everyday kind of things for Canadian politics.
Education, really, just educating myself on it, and something that I haven't really honestly done too much. I've never really been a big political guy, but taking the time to actually educate myself and get to know different parties and what they stand for and things like that.
What would increase my interest in Canadian politics? Well, I don't know that there's much. I'm currently a senior, so anything that would affect and improve my life as a senior would definitely improve pique my interest in politics for sure.
Well, it would increase my interest a lot more if we had more politicians who seem to actually care about the little man and not so much helping their rich friends.
What would make me more interested in politics? I think that if a politician would just answer a question directly instead of beating around the bush and not really answering the question entirely, I think that would make me a little more interested. I'll definitely gain my confidence in the establishment.
I guess seeing more honesty with the results and seeing better outcomes. I also think just listening to the people too, and seeing and being genuine too with what answers are being proposed. I just, being a young person, I just believe more honesty, but sometimes I know that's a long shot.
Which Canadian Prime Minister is credited for negotiating the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement? Is it Pierre Trudeau, Brian Mulroney, or Jean Chrétien? The answer, Brian Mulroney. The Canada-US Free Trade Agreement began negotiations in May of 1986, and a deal was reached the following year in October of 1987. In his first term as Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney favored closer economic ties with our neighbors to the south, aimed at eroding many of the trade barriers between our two countries. But many Canadians opposed free trade with the U.S., and it was a major issue during the 1988 federal election. The agreement finally came into effect on the first day of January 1989. It became the foundation of the deal, which included Mexico, and became known as NAFTA, which came into existence in 1994.
Lately, we've been hearing a lot about vaccines and the safety issues surrounding them, the danger of blood clots in particular. Brand names like AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson have been associated with this problem. But meanwhile, many Canadians still feel safe getting their vaccine, while others, not so much. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians how secure they feel about getting their dose. Our question:
Are you apprehensive to receive a COVID-19 vaccine shot?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for anyone to be nervous about this. Like, the health professionals have checked it out. They know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll trust them. That's their job. That's what they do. So I'm all for it.
I'm not apprehensive. If I were living in a different part of the country, I would be. But no, I'm just waiting for the next month to get it.
Well, I'm excited because, well, one, the science itself is really cool behind it. I'm a fan of that, and it's going to be a chance for us as a people to get a little bit back to normal, and actually be able to interact with one another again without all of these barriers between us.
I've worked in healthcare for 30 years, and we've gotten our flu shots every year, and there's always side effects, so I just figure it's just another vaccine.
I'm excited to contribute to herd immunity and to feel better about myself as a person who works in the service industry, so that I will feel that my footprint or my contribution to the spread of the virus will be contained, and I am 100% willing to take the vaccine in order to help out my community in that way.
I actually got my first dose of AstraZeneca, and this was right before they paused. So I was a little nervous when I found that out, and I'll be interested to see, like, moving forward, what that looks like in terms of like my second dose. But yeah, I was excited initially to get vaccinated.
The benefits greatly outweigh the risks, and even though like one of the vaccines has been, people are looking into it more. We know how they work.
I'm definitely excited about getting a vaccine. I think it'll give a lot more options and opportunities for people. Being in PEI, we've been sort of staying around home and staying on island more, so being able to leave and have those options might be a little bit better, as well as having some more trust in and confidence in going out in the public.
I got the vaccine, I want to say January. At first I was a little scared, but I'm kind of happy that I got it now, because I don't know, it feels like a safeguard to me, kind of, in a way. But at first I was a little apprehensive about getting it, for sure.
No, I'll get a vaccine. Yeah, I feel safe about it. The scientists worked on it. I'm trusting of what they have done, the work that they've done, so I'll get a vaccine.
I'm excited to have it. I'm apprehensive to know what I'm going to be getting, whether it will be the Moderna, Pfizer, or the other. And I think it's just the pharmacies that are giving it out, the AstraZeneca. I work at the airport, so I've been working right through the past year, and we deal with a lot of people's belongings, and I think maybe we should have been stepped up a little further on it.
I already got it, so, and I wasn't nervous, I was really excited. So I'm just ready to go back to normal life and living again.
That's a very interesting question. We're truly on the bleeding edge of medicine here, and I suspect you could call it the biggest medical experiment in history so far, but I think it's worthwhile. It is saving lives, it is obviously protecting people, and so it's worth it. For the few cases, tiny sliver of cases that have had negative side effects, I think it's worth it.
I've already had it, actually. I received it last week because I was fortunate enough to get some residual shots that were available at a pharmacy.
You jumped the queue?
I did. I did. I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time.
I do not believe there's enough scientific data in place to take the vaccine. That's my... Other people, it's entirely up to them. If they feel safe taking it, I have no problem. But personally, I do not feel there's enough data. It is emergency approved only, and therefore I'm not comfortable taking it at this time.
I haven't had my vaccination yet. I plan to. I'm waiting for a specific one because I've done the research on it, and I do prefer the old method of vaccinations, and so I'm waiting for Novavax, but I'm not quite ready to risk some of the newer methods, the mRNA and those sorts of ones, and I am looking for one that's got a high efficacy rate, and so I'm waiting for Novavax.
A little. I think like everybody is a little bit. It's so new and it just happens so quickly, you know, like yeah, it's just a little fast, but you know, it seems to be like the States are doing well in their vaccination thing.
Definitely I won't take the shot.
You won't?
No. Only if I am forced, well, maybe I have to go back to travel back to my country for some problems or something. But I consider that this shot is not reliable. From the beginning, I can tell you a joke, but it's not the case about Pfizer vaccine. You know what I thought. They've done Viagra, yeah, so they can rise us from the dead, you know.
Most of us have not traveled far from our home since at least March of 2020. Pandemic restrictions and strict self-isolation rules for those entering Canada from abroad have helped to make sure that we stay put until this is over. But when we finally have the ability to travel abroad once again, will you be on the first plane out, or will you wait till you're more comfortable to do so? Our question.
Will you be reluctant to travel when the pandemic is over?
I'm planning on inviting my sister after everyone is vaccinated, and I want to bring my sister out here to visit. She lives in Ontario. She's a little bit vulnerable, but I think that if everyone remains safe and still obeys all of the, not the restrictions, but the cautions that wearing a mask and staying distance, I think we should be safe traveling again in the future, in the near future.
I assume it's gonna, there's gonna be a lot more just, things in place at airports, so I'll probably have to, go and get a test, wear a mask, sanitize my hands a lot more, but, always been wary of these things. Because I have traveled abroad, like, recently, and just seeing, just everything that goes on in an airport, usually pretty wary anyway. Just be a little bit warier.
No, I like traveling for work. I'm an artist, so I like to do guest spots at other shops, and I do a lot of conventions for tattooing, so it'd be nice to get back on the road, and, as soon as we're all vaccinated and we're given the all clear, then I'd love to get traveling again. It'll definitely be a different type of travel. I don't think I'll be doing the international. Be a little more domestic vacations and, seeing more of this country, trying to keep my dollar, around instead of taking it overseas.
I guess when this is all dying down, it's probably not going to be over in a long time. It's going to definitely feel like I want to get out and I want to travel, and we're going to try to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, and for my work, I'll have to travel. And so I have no choice really, but I guess it's down to the vaccine, isn't it? Because it's not so much, as young people, I think I'm not so afraid of the virus. Personally, I don't have pre-existing health conditions that would make me more afraid than anyone else. And so I'm terrified of being someone who passes it on to anybody else. That's what really worries me.
Not at all.
Okay, tell me why.
I love traveling. I traveled a bunch beforehand. It was a great life experience, totally changed it for me. Every time I've done it, it's been incredible. Obviously, you don't want to go when there's restrictions. I went beforehand when you can kind of do whatever you want, go wherever you want, meet as many people as you can. And that's the biggest thing with traveling, is it's a big network thing. And if you can't really do that when you're out traveling, it kind of defeats the purpose to me. Like, it's not as fun when you can't go out and meet new people. But if things were kind of back to normal and you were able to go socialize with whoever you wanted to, why not? Go see the world. Go check it out.
Honestly, though, there's so many beautiful places in BC and Canada that, I don't think I will be traveling internationally anytime probably in the next 5 or so years, just because I do want to take in this time to visit different parts of the islands or just in BC as well, in Canada.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to travel even more when this is over. I can't wait for this to be over so we can actually leave the country and do anything we want to be doing.
As soon as I get the okay, I'm packing up and going for a couple of years.
I'm a traveler person, and I love to travel, especially now I'm retired. I'm not worried about my work. Yes, of course, I will. But the thing is, if I want to travel, I want to travel in peace, in comfortable. If I have to go everywhere and be in quarantine certain time, of course not. I will do it when it's everything safe and sound.
My best friend in the whole wide world lives in Melbourne, and I am desperate to see her. And seems like a great city. Luckily, hopefully after I'm vaccinated, they'll have lifted their 2 weeks quarantine, and seems like a wonderful place. So I will likely go see her as soon as possible.
No, I'm fortunate enough to, as I work on the front lines, I've been vaccinated. A little late, as I had already had COVID prior to that, but so now I like to joke and say I'm triple vaccinated, so I'll go wherever, anytime.
I don't think I'll be reluctant to travel. I'm desperate to travel again. As soon as I'm vaccinated and I feel strongly that wherever I'm going is in a good spot when it comes to COVID, I think I and a lot of other Canadians are going to be very excited to travel again.
Well, you tell me when it's over. I'm not sure how we're going to mark the over part of it, but I don't think I'll be reluctant to travel, but I think we're going to be pretty mindful about, where we travel and how, and, how far we are from home and what is our route home if things happen pretty quickly again.
Yeah, I will. I think that once folks are vaccinated, I'll feel better about it. We have plans to go traveling in 2023. That's where we've set our sights, but I don't think I would feel comfortable going in probably 2022. I think a lot will still be up in the air in terms of vaccination efforts, insurance if you did get sick abroad, or whether the money I spend, the hotels I book, the events I plan might fall through or change, and what kind of protection I would get as a customer to have those things really come back to me at the end of the day.
Well, like anybody else, I think there's a certain amount of cautiousness, and I think everybody should educate themselves on what companies, such as airlines, are doing to afford protection to, the customer. But overall, we need to get on with this. Is the end result.
I'm in no hurry to travel. Even this last year, if we have gotten out, we've stayed in Alberta. We've seen more of Alberta than we've ever have, which has been a positive.
When I'm vaccinated, I will be so excited to go everywhere around the world. So no, I won't be reluctant at all once I feel safe. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGinnis. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.